Hello, everyone. Welcome to How to Live in Peace podcast with myself, Nakia, and Tracy. Hey, Tracy. So, on this podcast, we have messages and DMs sent to us asking advice on how we can help or whatever situation is in, if we can give them an encouraging word. And so, we want to share a message that we received in our DM today. So, the message reads: I am in the middle of battling who I am, why, how, what, when phases. And now I'm trying to fill myself back up. I stayed while people are just walking away from me and I feel so hurt. Tracy, this is good and I can relate to this.
Yeah,
I
when
can
I read this, I felt like, they there's like the midlife crisis thing, and that could be at any age or any time, but it seems like we all hit a wall where we're going and going, and then you're just all of a sudden you're like, what happened? Or where and I think us women in particular lose ourselves a lot and then maybe wake up and be like, what happened? And I feel like that's what she's saying is who, what, where, like she's in this phase of like she wants maybe some purpose.
Yes. Yes, I agree. She says that
I've been
yeah, and she says I'm in the middle of battling who I am. I can relate to that because I know we discussed before just with my walk and my journey. I had went through this horrible time a few years ago, and when I was married, we were going through a separation, and I remember God asking me, who am I? And it was a question that I didn't even know how to answer. And I had realized at that moment, I really didn't know who I was. So since then, I have been doing the work with, finding out who I am, but it does take daily practice. So, what I did for myself was I said, who is he? Who is God? And what does God say about me? Right. So I know God is a healer. God is a redeemer. God is first. He is last. He is Alpha. He is Omega. He is all those things. And once I started to get into relationship with him and who he is, it helped me know who I am and what he says about me, right? God created me in his own image. He says I am beautifully and wonderfully made. And just reading those verses in the Bible really helped me just have a better understanding. And it's not something that you can just do one time and then just let it go, right? Like you have to keep that in mind, just remembering his word and his promises.
and feeling it really because I've read the Bible my whole life and I've been a believer and something didn't I don't know what was going on. It didn't click the way it does now where when you just describe that, like all these things God is, you know what I'm thinking as you're describing that? I'm thinking, so I don't have to be. I
Yes.
don't have to be the
Yes.
Alpha and Omega. I don't have
Yes.
to be the caretaker and the victim, or I don't have to be any of those things
Yes.
or all of those things. It's all off my plate. I feel like God is everything.
Yes.
I can just be my little tiny self.
Yes.
All the weight is off my shoulder,
Mhm.
and I can just be in the moment, and my
Right.
purpose has become so much smaller, which for me is a good thing. It's it it's less stress and less worry and less keeping up with the Joneses and less even defining. I don't because God is so defined, even you saying that God is defined, God, I don't have to be. So God takes all of that off my plate and I just live my little life one day at a time. And what's so crazy about this way of living is we're doing this podcast
Yes.
and I write for 14,000 people a day and I have a book and all of those things are not me. That was not, I sat down and wrote like this is my purpose and I'm
Right.
going to do this.
Right.
It was when I had nothing left and I was nothing and I was little tiny, 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 down to nothing, that God created this giant purpose that I don't even have. It's not on me. It's like he can do all the work. He can do big things, and I just live my tiny little life one day at a time, and somehow I find myself purposeful
Yes.
without trying, without defining.
Yes. Yes. And I think about who he is, right? And then I think about what he thinks about me.
Yes.
Even now, and I'm still like, even though it's been a few years since that question was asked, I'm not saying like I 100% know who I am. I will say this, like, it is a daily practice, right? You have to find out what you like, you have to find out what you don't like, you
Yes.
have to spend time to yourself, you have to, you have to just spend that time with just you to
Mhm.
figure things out, right? And
Mhm.
so I think about how God created me in his image, and I think about how he perfectly knit me together in my mother's womb. And I think about how much he thinks about me, right? Like,
Right.
it says that
You
his thoughts,
personally.
yeah, like his thoughts outnumber the grains of sand. Tracy, if you think about the grains of sand on a beach, right? There's no way that we can count, even what's on our
Amazing.
fingers. And his thoughts about us outnumbers us. God is love. He loves us so much, and he's a comforter. And me knowing that, that helps me be at peace. That
Right.
helps me be at peace with where I am and being present. It helps me be at peace with
Mhm.
where I'm going even now. Like, I talk to God like I talk to like to a friend, and I say to God, I'm like, "Oh God,
I
like, God, like, how can I, even with this podcast, I'm like, God, okay, well, he says, hey, you have to share your testimony. You have to share where you are. And this is a great question, because this woman is in the middle of battling who she is and why and how. And I do want to say this: you don't have to try to figure it all out,
Right.
because God already has it figured out for you. And I think that's what our problem. We get so caught up in our everyday, like the world
Yes.
is just constantly going, we're mothers, grandparents, or sisters, brothers, co-workers. Like, we do so much that we try to plan so much, and take one thing at a time, right? Because you
Oh, yeah,
say
way easier.
who I am, why, how. I can tell you the why. You woke up this morning because God has a purpose for you. So
Yeah.
that is the why in itself.
Mhm.
How and what, in what phases, to get those answers. I believe you have to spend time with God, because he will reveal them to you in whatever way that that you are able to hear him. What do you think, Tracy?
Exactly. I think so too. I think for me, it has happened that way where doors open or windows open out of, I mean, I don't know, I'm not even planning it. And that has so far, that is how God is showing me what to do every day. It's like someone will DM me or call me or what, I mean, so that must be who I'm supposed to talk to that day. And I don't overthink it. I feel like when you're in that phase where you're like, I don't know what my purpose is, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm gonna guess, I'm probably pretty right too, is you were defined somehow before. You were a wife, or you were this career woman, or you were a mother and now your kids are gone, or whatever the case is. And those were not, that's not who you were. That was a circumstance, or is a circumstance. And we get caught up in what society thinks of us or calls us, or our title, or whatever we can say we're doing. And it messes with your head. I mean, it will make you feel so small. It'll make you feel like I need to be doing something, or I need to be better, or whatever. And I feel like when I say my purpose is so tiny, it's like I just, if I need to talk to a neighbor, that's who God will, I like God will, my purpose for today could be being kind to the neighbor. And who knows why or what the ripple effect is on that. But it takes away that whole, my like title, or who I need to tell people I am. That's all gone. Circumstances come and go, they change. I mean, for you, for me, big changes in life, but even little tiny changes. And we can
Yes.
roll with it when that's not our purpose. Even being a mother, and I know there's a touchy subject because people will be like, no, I am a mother, I'm a mama bear. But you can't have your purpose be in your kids they're their own human beings and they're gonna go do their own thing. So, I mean, that's dangerous territory right there.
Very. And that actually is perfect because that actually flows into what she says. And she says, and now I'm trying to fill myself back up.
Yes.
So, like you said, being a mom and doing this and doing that and having all
Mhm.
of these things that you're doing, it's so hard to fill yourself up if you're
Yes.
so busy having your hand in so many other things. That's
And
why.
if you get those things taken away from you. So, say you get your marriage taken away from you or your kids taken away from you, or they're going to leave eventually. Um now it's like, what am I worth? And a lot of men, and I'm going to guess men too, will feel worthless. And that's ridiculous. I mean, you just listed, I mean, they should rewind this podcast and listen to it again on all the things God says we are. Has nothing to do with circumstances or people coming and going. And like you said, she's saying, trying to fill herself up because she's hanging on to people who are leaving her. Maybe God's saying it's time for her. It's time for me. It's time for Nakia.
And that's the difficult part. That's the key because you don't want to do that, right? If you love someone, if you're comfortable in this relationship, if you are in a place where you're just like, I don't want to. Sometimes God does things in ways that we just don't understand. So she says, I stayed while people are just walking away from me, and I feel so hurt. God's rejection is protection.
Yeah.
Rejection isn't always a bad thing. People walking out of your life, sometimes you just have to thank and praise
Yep.
God that they walked out of your life because where you are going, they're
Yes.
not supposed to go. They are not part of your destiny, right?
Right.
And so those people walking away out of your life, it's hard, it's difficult, I know, but you will get through it. You're going to look back and be like, oh,
Yep.
that's why this is what happened because he knows the plans that
Yes.
he has for us and they are for your good, not for disaster.
Right.
They are perfect. So he knows those things. So I say that now when people walk out of my life, I thank God you are not supposed to be here. What's
Right.
meant to be is meant to be, right?
But you know
God,
what? We can say that though. You and I can say that one because we've learned. I mean, so this is
yes,
not some, like, we've been through it,
yes,
but two, I've learned that, yeah, when people leave, it's okay. I mean, it's okay because I'm also okay with nothing is forever because I got me and God and I'm good. I'm good. But if you're feeling hurt, I mean, we can all be disappointed and let down, but if you're feeling hurt, like your core is being hurt, that means you put something in that person that was too much. I mean, you put yourself in them or your worth or your identity or your, whatever you invested in them. Don't do that again. I mean, don't they are not you, and people can walk away, they can walk back. I mean, and it's okay. But I feel like if you're really feeling hurt, like core hurt, something's wrong with you, like how you invested yourself, and God is freeing you from that bondage that you had to a temporary thing, a relationship, a thing, a home, whatever you were bound to. God is releasing you from that. Like, let go instead of like being crying, like upset, just like you can find yourself clenching up sometimes. You just gotta let go. Let it go.
Tracy, you said something a little while ago. You said that you place your emotions in someone else.
Mhm.
I realized at that moment that I was placing my happiness, I
Yes.
was placing everything in my ex-husband. And when he left, I felt like lost. Like I realized I was placing my home and
Mhm.
someone else. And when they left, I became homeless. I didn't know
Yes.
what to do. I didn't know how to think.
Amen.
I didn't know how to be
Horrible.
happy. It was a horrible place for me to be in. And I said to myself at that very moment, I said, I will never do that again. I will never put myself in a situation to where I d I'm setting myself up. I'm putting expectations on someone or something or an event or anything that if
Okay.
it fails, then it's gonna take away my happiness. It's gonna take away
Right.
my peace, right?
Right.
And so how do we live in peace with being happy and knowing who we are, Tracy? What would you say? How do you start the battle? For me, I would think be aware of your thoughts because I think that's so important too. Like be aware of your thoughts because if you start creating narratives in your head and you start um
Oh,
you
dangerous.
know, that is just like that can go left. Like the Bible says that we can take captive of our thoughts. So we can actually stop thinking at something
Yeah.
at that very moment, right? So what I try to do is I try to place those thoughts with God's word. And if you say, "Hey, I don't know God's word like that, Nakia, I'm not in my Bible like that, Nakia." Okay, well, just start small, right? Like just talk to God. Just talk to God like he's your friend. But what would you say, Tracy, to this person? How would you have what would your recommendation be to live in peace? How to live in peace with
Well,
this?
okay, girl, that my answer is always
Yes,
surrender.
surrender.
So, in this case, it's absolutely true again, because if you are completely surrendered to God being in charge, I think I've said it before, but again, like I feel like if I'm completely surrendered, I could be in the gutter with nobody and no one around me and no things, and I would be okay. I know I would be like, okay, God, I'm in the gutter for a reason. Like, what's my purpose in this gutter? And I try to remember that. Like, if I am good with God, it's like me and God, okay, we're going to hold hands and we're going to get through this. Then things don't hurt so much. I mean, they're still going to be rough, but I can be at peace even when people are leaving me, when there's turmoil, when there's drama, when I don't know what I'm doing today. Like, yeah, maybe I don't have purpose for today, but I can still be at peace because it's like, all right, God, it's me and you. Where are we going next? With who? And if I keep that, which I got to practice, that's a practice. I got to practice keeping that secure with God, that when life throws me and does all that things, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna be at peace. It's so much harder if you're trying to be at well, it's not going to work if you're trying to be at peace with someone or with something, and th- things get ripped away. I mean, people and places, things are temporary. So my answer to live in peace, even with this, with finding her purpose, with people leaving her, it's surrender. It's get good with God so that he's like your ride or die. And you go through life. It's not all going to be great, but you're going to be at peace.
You're going to be at peace. And knowing and believing God is everywhere. He's in you. You
All right,
can
right
never
here, right here.
separate. You can never separate yourself from God. God can never separate yourself. God is love. And when you know that and when you believe that, then it brings you so much peace to know that anybody could leave. I know that it'll hurt. Yes, we're human. It
Yeah,
will
it
hurt,
will.
it will sting. Yes, I'm not saying that. But just knowing that God is there with you and he will fill you with his peace. He will fill you with his comfort. He will fill you with his love. But with that being said, you have to spend time with God.
Well,
You
yeah.
have to. That's just like getting into a relationship with someone, right? Like
Yeah.
you just
Yeah.
don't meet them and then you're like automatically like in like everything about like you have to take time
Right.
to date them and to get to
Right.
know them and God will show you. A lot of people are like, "Well, how can I do that? Like I'm not like you, Nakia. I don't read I don't read the word. I don't." God will make divine connections happen. And he will
Yes.
place things and people in the path in your path to where you are able to say, "Oh,
Yeah,
Okay,
there's
I
God. There's
understand it. There's
Mhm.
God. There he is because he is love and he is joy. So, yes, that's what I would say to her. And hey, if people walk away, like Tracy said, surrender.
Yeah. I mean, work it out. It'll work out.
It will work out and you will be okay.
Yes.
So, Tracy, what would you say? How would you say that this message will be received? I hope that this message is received very well.
Oh, I think so. Honestly, I feel like most people I know have been through this or are going through this. So when I read her DM, I'm like, wow. I mean, unfortunately, why we're reading these out loud is because we relate and it's very relatable.
Yes.
So the purpose is make your purpose small. Just make your purpose daily purpose to be a kind person, and God will put you in situations that are unbelievable. So
Yes.
that to me, I wouldn't worry too much about your purpose.
Yes.
More more worry or work on just God being your ride or die. Like that
Yes.
way, daily, you're like, okay, what do you got for me today, God? Like, where are we going? What are we gonna do? And it takes away all of the you don't have to have answers. If I
Yeah.
come to you and say, what's your purpose? You can even say, I don't know, God's got it today. I mean,
Right.
it takes a lot of that pressure off of
Mhm.
planning and who are you and give me your 10-year plan. And I mean, we realize as we get older, like that's not going to work anyway because
Yeah.
life throws stuff at you.
It
I mean,
does.
people don't cooperate. The
Yes.
world's difficult.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
why not
Yes.
just live one day at a time
One day. And
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 let God be your best friend, lock
your
arms,
best friend. And that's
and
what he
go with
actually that's what he tells us actually. Do not worry about tomorrow.
God.
Like, don't worry about today has enough in it. Like, we
Mhm.
have enough things to worry about for today. And
Yes,
even with that, knowing that and believing that, that takes practice.
it
So
does.
I hope that this person was able to listen to this episode. I pray that this person has gained wisdom and any kind of good advice from us. And to you, the people who are watching and who are listening, please feel free to reach out to both myself and
Mhm.
Tracy so we are able to just pray over you as well. Because let me tell you something, you are not the only one that's going through something. And don't let
Right.
social media and life fool you to thinking that everybody is perfect because someone is battling something.
Yeah.
So your request, your comment, your
Mhm.
anything that you have that you just want to just talk about or just listen, we're here
Mhm.
to help. So be feel
Yes.
free to find me at Li Peace with Nikia. And Tracy, what about you?
At deep breath and let go. Find
Deep.
me, message me anytime. I get it. I've been there.
Yes. And also how to live in peace. You can find us on YouTube. We'll be there. You can go to either one of our pages and connect with us there. So I hope you all enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for watching.
Bye.
Bye.